you. Thank you. Oh my God, I love that song. Oh my God, I love Envy. Oh my God, I love doing this. Actually, that was a personal request that I had, and I just love it. I love that song. I love that energy. I love the reminder. And especially, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and so then like thinking about today's service, I believe that we are empowered to be our most authentic selves and that we trust it when we also allow ourselves to realize that there is a power, there is an energy, there is a consciousness that we can lean on, right? And so in moments of fear, in moments where we are maybe thinking small of ourselves, that we can lean on something as good as God is, gives us that energy to show up in the world, right? Who is ready to show up in the world in bigger and greater ways? It's an amazing thing to be reminded. And by the way, I want you to know you're already showing up in beautiful and amazing ways. And the opportunity to remember that there is always growth, there is always evolution, there is always opportunities for us to experience the greatness of who we are and the greatness of what God is in bigger and bigger ways. I really love it. And I really believe that as more and more we remember that which is within us, more and more as we remember the very power of God, we're gonna do even more and more amazing things. And we're gonna hear that still small voice. We're gonna hear that wisdom of God ushering us into new spaces. Now here's the kicker. How many of you have heard that still small voice in small and big ways before? How many of you have listened to that still small voice or powerful boom here and there? And how many of you, here and there, right? Like, I don't like to talk in 100% here, right? How many of you recognize that you've heard it and sometimes you still haven't really leaned on it or followed it? Yeah, true. And it happens to me more times than I probably care to say, but probably I share with you very easily. And the awareness of that and the opportunity that is within each of those moments to remember that, yes, it's a twofer. It's the listening to the still small voice, but also feeling empowered enough and pushing ourselves. And I believe that sometimes it's a push that pushes us into living into that wisdom, living into that guidance. So there is this gentleman who was feeling guided and wanted to go and find himself a pet. He felt it was time for a pet, but he didn't want just any regular pet. He wanted a very unique and special pet. So he went to the pet store. And after some discussion with the pet owner, they figured out that what he should take home was, a talking centipede. The ones with 100 legs? A talking centipede. It was like unique, it was special, so he took it home with him in a little box, a little home, and he was so filled with gratitude and so excited about his pet. He's like, oh, I gotta go to a church with you and show you all around. You ready to go to church with me? And nothing, not a word. He starts pacing around for a few minutes, and it's like, all right, let me go try it again. Hey, do you want to go to church with me today? Let's go. It's going to be so exciting. We're going to learn so much. Nothing. So again, he paces and gives him a couple of more minutes and goes back. Says, listen, hey, in there, did you hear me? I'd like to go to church with you and learn more about God and be in gratitude to God. And all of a sudden, he hears this little voice that said, I heard you the first time. I've been putting on my shoes. Remember, hold on. I'm going to even do the dance this time around. This is me. Oh, okay. Listen, it takes us different times, right? Like sometimes it takes us a little bit longer than other times. Sometimes we have to feel into being comfortable to step into some of those opportunities and some of that greatness that is always in front of us. And I have to tell you, I am a firm believer that we've already been promised our good. And so it's really just for us to be able to walk into that good. Hear this. We've already been promised our good. And so if you know that, if we knew that, how much easier would it be? How much more courage would we have to live into the opportunities that are before us? To be able to listen to the still small voice or the booming voice of God and not only hear it, but be willing to follow it. And maybe sometimes following it blindly, sometimes following it with, a little bit of what's going on, or you have a vision of what's going on, right? But to be able to really embody the wisdom. And we've all been brought into this. So I have to tell you, when I look around the room, I realize that all of us heard the still small voice that said, come to Unity on the Bay. Right? So if you haven't had an experience that you can lean on to remind you of the ways in which you have heard the calling of God, let me tell you, you being here in this very moment, a part of this community, shows me that you are able to hear the wisdom of God, the guidance of God, and say yes to the wisdom of God and what it has for you at hand. Amen? Amen. How many of you, like as soon as you heard about Unity, felt the calling and the push and you showed up to your greatest good? All right. How many of you heard about it a couple of times and thought to yourself, oh yeah, I should get there, but you got busy, you had other things to do, right? And so it takes us different times, and we're here. And we've listened to that still small voice. And I believe that you're already reaping the benefits of that. Now, I'm not saying that it's because, I am wise, but I will say, I turned 46 on Friday, so there's a certain wisdom that comes from 46. That at 47, I'll say, ha. But what I want to say is that when I talk about wisdom, and I'm going to share what I've been inspired and guided into, I also share with you that wisdom is really within you. I hope that my words inspire you to listen to your own wisdom, your own guidance, and the things that God has in store for you. Now, this journey that we are all on, it's a journey, and I love that Caroline Myss in these chapters, she talks about the process of the journey, and let's see if you can connect with this. Because if you're like me, sometimes we talk a good game, and we may not play into that game as fully. The journey to becoming conscious is often more attractive in theory than it is in practice. Pursuing consciousness theoretically through books and conversations allows us to fantasize about getting to the promised land without actually having to make any changes in our lives. Oh, I heard the ahs. Be honest. Did somebody feel a little sting inside when you read that, right? When you hear that? I know I did, because I know that there are spaces where I am still in the theory of it. I haven't fully put it into practice, or I haven't fully embodied, at least not moment by moment, experience as experience. And I invite myself and I invite all of us to look at how we are going from theory into real embodiment, to being anchored so much in the living of these theories that it becomes second nature. But that takes effort, that takes practice, and that takes a certain strength that I believe we find when we surrender to the journey and when we surrender to the power of God as our strength. And so becoming conscious is really an invitation to sort of change the rules of the games that we play, and to recognize that there are certain beliefs that are being asked to evolve within us, that they may have served us or not served us, but that we are at a point in our life where we are ready to experience something new, where we're able to hear that which has been said to us over and over again, that which we have said to ourselves over and over again, but finally take the courage and take the strength to be able to live into it. And I have to tell you that it takes a certain level of releasing control and being able to surrender to the experience of God and that wisdom, and to be able to recognize, as I continue to recognize, that there is sort of the knowledge of ego and all the experiences that I bring into it and all of the things and the gunk that I have collected over the years. And then there is something very pure that is within each and every one of us, which is pure wisdom itself. It's something that isn't in any way obstructed by our resentments, by our limited thinking, and more, it's an invitation to follow that and to follow that guidance. And I have to tell you that one of the best gifts that I got was 11 years ago when we had our son, Lucas, because he is such a perfect mirror about this idea of, no, it's got to be my way, not God's way. Been there? No. Yes, God, I will follow your instructions as long as it looks like this, because this is the way it has to be. And I kid you not, like I have these moments where, yes, I am a human person, and so I'm looking at my 11-year-old son who has a mind of his own, and whether I say it specifically or I'm just feeling it in the way that I say it, hey, it's my way or the highway. Yes? It's my way or the highway. Actually, really quick joke. The other day, a couple of weeks ago, Lucas was pushing back, and I said to him, Lucas, I have lived 42 years, and so I know what I'm talking about. And I just hear my husband scream, you're turning 46. But I have those moments where it's like, it's my way or the highway. My way or the highway. And I say that to Lucas. I unconsciously say it to other people around me. I say it to God also. It's my way or the highway. And I came to the realization this morning, actually it is the highway. It's my way, my limited thinking way, or the high vibration way, the high consciousness way, that high energy that God is in me. And so do I want to get stuck in the muck of all that I have come to bring along with me, or do I want to be freed from it and really allow myself to move with God? And so the opportunity of speaking and feeling and embodying and being anchored in my way, the highway, and saying to that which brought that up, not my will, but thy will. Not my will, but thy will be done. Say that with me. Not my will, but yours be done. Not my will, but yours be done. And I have to tell you, I often laugh at myself sometimes because, as you know, I start putting together I put together my notes, but I really condense it all, and I really sit with what I'm going to share with you on Sunday mornings. And I had a little bit of a block. And I'm trying to figure it out, and what am I going to say, and how am I supposed to say it? And here I am, knowing that I want to speak about not my will, but thy will. And so finally, after wrestling with myself for quite a while this morning, I was like, oh, there's my teaching in this moment. Not my will, but thy will. And I went within. I went into prayer. I went into about 15 minutes of meditation, even though I knew I had a certain amount of time to prepare. And all of a sudden, it began to flow for me, or I began to understand it a little bit more. So by the way, if you don't like this talk to God about it, because it's all fully inspired and guided. No, but it's what came up for me. And I love that Jesus, our master teacher, is the one that invited us into recognizing the power of not my will, but thy will. And he said it in one of those moments where, God, if I were in those shoes, I would have been like, no, this is what I want, right? Because he said it as he was praying the night that he was going to be betrayed, the night that he was going to be shackled and taken and moved into his crucifixion. If I were in those shoes, I know that I'd like it my way because I know what I want. But to have the insight into saying, not my will, but thy will. And I know that there are times when things do get really rough and tough for us, and we do have those moments of surrender. But I also know that sometimes we really fight surrendering because, yes, we're so comfortable with control, and sometimes we're uncomfortable with where we're at in life, but at least, it's better to be in the uncomfortability that we know than the uncomfortability of the unknowingness, right? Been there? And so we get so used to that. And part of that is because we have, I believe, come to a place where if we were to follow God's will, we think we got to let it all go, right? Like everything that has brought us safety, everything that has brought us comfort, I'm like, when I think of God, your will, I'm thinking, oh God, is he going to say I'm going to be like some Buddhist meditation? I'm going to go up on a mountain for a couple of years and I have to let go of everything? And so that brings a fear in me because of the attachments that I have. and the power of recognizing that if we are open, if we are receptive, that we will be guided and that we will be held in that process. I love in our wealth and health and harmony class, we've been talking about the difference between fear and faith and how we sometimes live from both places, right? And especially when we are listening to that still small voice or that booming voice of God, we have a choice. Are we going to listen to it from the place of fear, or are we going to listen to it from a place of faith? And I love what Bob Proctor said. Faith and fear both demand that you believe in something you cannot see. You choose. So both of them require for you to put yourself in the place of just not knowing what the future may hold. But when you do it from a place of fear, how does that feel? When you do it from a place of faith, how does that feel? Well, guess what? I want to choose the one that opens me up more. The one that when I look back on the experience or on my life, that I can be grateful that I heard that inner voice and that I followed it. Every choice or every opportunity is a choice to come from that place of fear or faith. And yes, we go to God a lot of times with the big stuff, but why can't we go to God for the small things, right? Like I think about that, or I was thinking about that today. It's like, yeah, for the big things, I'll take a moment to meditate and pray, but what would happen if I would actually want to go left or right on the street? Guide me, God. Wake up this morning and I don't know what I'm going to do, or I have an idea of what I'm going to do. Take a moment. Guide me, God. At every moment, the small things to the big things. Because the reality is that in God, there's no difference between small or big, right? That's our construct. That's what we believe. There's no time, there's no space, there is no small or big. Things simply are. And so the more that we are able to lean on God for all the things that are a part of our lives, the greater we will be able to move into them with a sense of grace and peace and comfort, even in the unknowingness. And every choice has an energetic consequences, the way that Caroline Myss is talking to us or sharing with us in these chapters. Every single choice that we make, the way that we say hello to each other, it does something to us. The way that we walked in, it did something with us. Now, some feel bigger or go deeper than others, but they all have an energetic consequence. And the question is, what's the energy that we want to express? What's the energy that we want to live in? What's the energy that we want to have guide us in every single moment of our day? And so the growth work, I'm going to give it to you now. It's, yes, go on our app and look at the questions, but what would a day in your life look like if every time you had to make a decision, you said to yourself, not my will, but thy will? Say that with me again. Not my will, but thy will. Think about that. So are you all with me? Would you do that with me? One day this week, where every time you're going to make a choice, not my will or thy will, so that at nighttime you can look back and recognize the ways in which we have been held. It reminded me of a story, and it's a joke that I've shared with you, and there's a two-part for it, but this joke, and it talks about this guy who's a rock climber, and he gets really close to the edge and starts falling down the edge of the cliff, and so he's in fear. He's just straggling. I mean, have you ever been in one of those places where you're just trying to grab onto something, right? And you're in the place of fear, and he finally finds a little ledge on the rock to hold onto. And he is in such fear that he's just closing his eyes. He's holding on for dear life. He's just looking up above, and he's like, anybody there to help me? God, please help me. God, please help me. And to his surprise, he hears this voice. He's like, yes, my child, I am here. Let go. He's like, wait, what? Let go. What? Let go. He just looks up. He's like, is there anybody else up there? Right? But a lot of times we do that. We seek the guidance, but we're not willing to, or we're in such fear that we're not willing to fully follow that guidance. But guess what? The second part of that story is that he had nothing else to lose. He was just holding on to dear life. And so he finally was like, all right, I'll follow the guidance. I'll let go. He had just been 2 inches from the ground. But in his fear, he did not realize that. In his fear, he was clinging on to the issue, to the problem, to the challenge in such a way that he wasn't able to just recognize that God knew what was going on, that God knew how to direct his life, and that through faith, he'd be saved. And I have to tell you that for me, I know that it's not about God ever catching us. Because the reality is that God has never let go of us. We have always been held by God. We're always in God's unfolding grace. Think about that. Hold that in a moment. I don't need to be caught by God. I've never been let go by God. Not my will, but yours. Not my will, but yours. Charles Fillmore, co-founder, says, we do not know how to work in accordance with divine law until we learn to let go our personal will and allow Spirit to move through us. That's what it is. It's being able to really release the things that have bound us, the things that have kept us from fully recognizing that grace always is. Grace always is. When we made the mistake, grace was there. When we followed our calling, grace was there. When we realized just the greatness of God, grace was there. When we said no to knowing that God was there, God and grace were there. Our good is always unfolding, and our good has been promised to us. What would it look like for us to live a life of knowing that regardless of our choices, regardless of the ways in which we are moving in the world, our good is promised? And it's just a matter of, do we want to take the shortcut, or do we want to take the long way around it? I like shortcuts. I like to be at that place of heaven here on earth a little longer, right? And so the invitation is to really recognize that we always have that choice. Caroline Myss says, our faith and our power of choice are in fact the power of creation itself. We are the vessels through which energy becomes matter in this life. And so Unity on the Bay, are you ready to take on your own spiritual power? To be able to say yes to the guidance of God, to be able to say yes to the wisdom of God, to be able to say, I may be in fear, and that won't stop me from following what you're directing me into. That I may have some questions, I may have some uncomfortability, I may not be fully certain, and yet I trust and have faith, and I know that I've never been let down. Because every time that we look back, can you see how grace has been there? Can you see how you were always being held? Can you see how God always is? So moving it from theory to practice. Spiritual growth happens when we truly live from the place of our divine truth. Now, I have to tell you, speaking of wisdom or guidance and questioning whether we should follow it or not, as I was preparing this morning, I was reminded of this song that just kept playing in my mind over and over and over again. And my first thought was like, oh, that would have been really good for the choir to sing today. But it's too late. You know, we make the excuses, right? Thank God I forgot that Envy was going to be singing, because as she was singing earlier, another thought came, wait, you're going to do this while Envy just sang? Because what came to me is like, wait a minute, it's for me to sing. It's for me to live into the words of these songs. And it's for me to invite you into this singing with me. So without the band playing, I'm going to invite you. I'll sing the first couple of stanzas first and then invite you to sing it with me. But if you know it from the very beginning, just go ahead and sing with me, because it's about us being raw. It's about us being vulnerable. And it's about us knowing that when we follow the guidance, we feel it, we sense it, and it enlivens us in deep ways. So this is Daniel Nahmod speaking to God. You are sacred love is all that you are. You are sacred love, God, sacred love is all that you are. Show the way, God, show the way. I want to live in such a state of grace. Lead the way, God, lead the way. I want to live in such a holy place. Such a holy place. You are sacred love is all that you are. You are sacred love, God, sacred love is all that you are. Show the way, God, show the way. I want to live in such a state of grace. Lead the way, God, lead the way. I want to live in such a holy place. Such a holy place. Feel that. Trust it and know it. Affirm it in you always. It is how we do live into the everlasting love. It is how we trust God. It is how we live from the place of faith. It is how we let God be God, directing us, and we let ourselves be the truth of God in expression in the world. Namaste.